Hello everyone, I am the Lore Explorer, and this video will contain endgame spoilers for Outer Wilds. This analysis took me around 4 years to figure out, and it's not even sure to be completely accurate. This is just my interpretation of the ending of Outer Wilds, but I think it's possible this analysis may actually help some people. And so I think it's important to make this video and try to get this message out to as many people as possible. The Eye of the Universe is a scary place, and the ancient glade is dark and unsettling, and it's designed that way on purpose. I like to think that I had a pretty good perspective on the universe when I initially played Outer Wilds, yet after I finished the game, I came crawling to YouTube to explain what the heck it was I just experienced, looking for any comfort I could find. Now the ending probably filled you with existential dread, made you feel tiny, alone, and lost in the universe, and then let you reminisce and ponder it all without much explanation, all within about an hour or so less. But in today's loop, I'm here to tell you that it's all okay. The Eye of the Universe is actually trying to convey something beautiful to you through symbolism. But when we experience it for the first time, we don't understand what we're seeing. It takes a few more loops to figure out the whole picture and fit those pieces together. Now, before we get into it, we need to do a quick recap of the ending. The Eye of the Universe is essentially a quantum black hole in our universe. It's been recording all information in the universe through absorbing this quantum gray smoke that we see around the eye. And when we arrive at the eye and enter it, we entangle with the eye and become one with it, allowing the eye to use our consciousness and this quantum smoke around us to communicate with us. And the eye uses this ability to facilitate the beginning of the next universe. It's pretty simple when it comes to Outer Wilds anyway, but those are really the important bits that you need to understand for this video. But now we're on the same page, let's start. During our relatively brief time there, we see a lot of things happening at the Eye of the Universe, and today we're going to be talking about the symbolism and meaning we find there, and what the events that we experience are trying to evoke and tell us as players. As I mentioned, the ending is designed to make you feel small and alone. We get teleported to this big planet, and we don't even get to take our ship for safety. No backup plans, we can't even go back to Dark Bramble once we get there, like any sane person would want to do that, but I guess, given the choice, and still, we just can't if we try. We have no way to go but forward, and we're met with this changing planet that makes little sense. It was black when we looked down at it from the vessel, but now that we're actually there, it's blue. We can only enter from the South Pole. The first thing we experience there, other than just a blue planet, is a quantum thunderstorm. Pure unbridled power lashing out at us from above. Nothing we can do to protect ourselves from it, and it just so happens to be chucking down rocks and trees at us as well. All of this with very unsettling sounds being played as we make our way through this harrowing experience. And this is not to make you feel big and mighty. And when we finally make it to the source that's been emitting these strange signals throughout the universe, there is no real relief. We can see whatever the eye may be, it's literally tearing at time and space around it. The pure magnitude of this object above us is so strong, it's reversing and overcoming local gravity. It just ripped the surface of this planet up like it was tiny bits of paper, folding these fingers and molding them out to where we see them today. I mean, it's crazy. And here we are, now, tiny as a rock, just below it. And after a few more unsettling things and hints that we're lost in time like the soundtrack as we fall through the vortex, we enter the eye and entangle with it. Here, the eye shows you the Harthian Museum, something familiar to us, and uses the plaques to communicate to you what's happening, how the universe is ending, how we achieve the Nomai's dream, and how we're thankful that the anglers are dead. All that good stuff. But to me, it made me feel like all of the fates of our loved ones are just insignificant cosmically. The Nomai, all the venturers, they're all insignificant. Plaques on a wall in a museum to be ignored, if you please. Only ever going to have one visitor in the museum anyway, us, nothing more. Of course, this is designed to get you to contemplate a bit. Why here? Were our actions so important they were written down by the eye and it's at the center of the universe? Or are they so insignificant that they're just plaques to be ignored in a museum that's rarely ever visited? What's it trying to tell me beyond just explaining the events? But there's one piece of information the eye left as normal here. Hornfels' observations. In them, Hornfels learns that every star they see in the sky are actually galaxies. I think this is to force perspective on you. First, it was our star going nova and blinking out. Then we probably notice the galaxies around us look almost identical to our sun going nova, and we think they're suns. But they're actually entire galaxies just zoomed out a bit. And then the next thing the eye shows us is a bit unknown. Is it our galaxy, or is this the entire universe? Each light in it a galaxy, like Hornfeld said. And I think this is all just to force perspective on you, and if that isn't enough, when we observe our galaxy, it looks just like it did when we observed the map in the solar system in the museum. This zoom out makes us feel the scale for ourselves, and you can just keep zooming out, solar system to galaxy to universe. And I tend to think that, what we see in the museum's a galaxy, but then we zoom out to see what made us feel so small to begin with is only one of probably infinite galaxies. And when we zoom out all the way, we see the universe itself looks a lot like a galaxy. The same thing is happening over and over again, just on larger scales all throughout the universe. First the suns, then whole galaxies, then the entire universe. And that's what we're witnessing now, the heat death of the universe. I'm not sure how anybody could experience all of this and not feel confused, lost, small, existential, and alone in the universe. It's all designed to the last note of music to make you have those feelings. But here is where the real meaning comes in. Because after going through all of that emotionally, the game then follows this with a beautiful hidden message that you're not ready to receive, neither emotionally or contextually. Welcome to the Ancient Glade. After we experience the heat death of the universe firsthand, we see the sparks from our universe light the darkness below. We make our way to this newfound forest, and again, we see spiral galaxies in the trees. Or are these entire universes the perspective mistake all over? Who really cares which they are? Right now, they're pretty lights in the trees. Wonder probably fills back to us. Maybe we start playing around in the lights, hoping to relish in this moment. Or maybe we just sit around and contemplate it all in dark quietness as the forest starts to fade. Because after a while, all the lights blink out. And again, we're lost and alone. We wander along for a while with only the ground and flashlight in view. Again, this is to make us feel lost and alone. But after a while, we spot a few quantum trees. And after a while, a signal pops up. And if we follow this signal the universe is sending us, the signal scope brings us to one of our strangest encounters in Outer Wilds. We run into ourself in the Ancient Glade, some company for a lonely hatchling. But this is even more us than self was. This version of us copies every single move we make. It's meant to be us in every single possible way we can test. But when we go to interact with ourselves, we turn into a tree. From here, usually people just move on from the tree. They trek through the emptiness in hopes to find something new, until it basically just forces you back on a track that always loops back on itself. It always leads you back to this tree, at which time you see the once tall tree grew younger. And this would likely repeat a couple of times as we search for something other than this tree. This is to make us feel lost not only in time, but space as well. Both. Because if time for this tree is moving backwards, how is it moving for us? But we will get back to the meaning of this later. Once we do this enough times, we see that the tree eventually turns into a campfire. And of course, being a Hearthian, we light this campfire. But now, we sort of don't know what to do. We've had 10 marshmallows already, and nothing is happening. We've spent who knows how long staring into this campfire, wishing something new would happen, but it hasn't. And so, we leave the campfire. But again, space and time is basically looping in reverse now. We just get led back to the campfire after a while. But this time, it's half surrounded by trees. And this loop repeats again. But this time, this place is starting to become more and more familiar to us. And all of a sudden, this seemingly reminds us of our friend, Esker, the traveler who's been sitting at the campfire alone for the longest time. They've set up shop on the Outer Rock and have been there so long they outwardly feel lonely, sort of doing desperate things to feel part of the group again, like sending scouts to spy on the crater or setting up an observation post dedicated to listening to their friends' music and taking notes on them. We always thought they were a bit silly, but now, we kind of relate. Music is how everything is connected through time and space. And now they're all gone, we probably wish we had our scout and friends to spy on, right? What we wouldn't give to hear some of that music right now. And this is where the eye finally starts to show its true colors. The next time we loop back on the campfire, it's not sitting alone in the woods. there's a chair next to it. One who seated the Hearthian almost everyone forgot to visit. Yet, they were the ones that we first remembered. And our memory of them and the eye using our memories is what allows them to show up to the campfire. And of course, talking to Esker reminds us of all of our other friends. Next, we hear Riebeck's instruments in the woods, and Riebeck alone, which is a bit odd. Personally, I think Riebeck is second because Nice, the creator of every one of the instruments, sits at home all day, plucking the banjo. And just as seeing the forest and fire brought Esker to mind, having Esker around the campfire reminds us of home. And this reminds us of Riebeck, the banjo player. Now, we find Riebeck's banjo inside a Know My Rune, and you may think, oh, well, Riebeck loves Know My Runes, how fitting. But it's not just that. See, this isn't just the eye showing us something to communicate with us. This is our memory's representation of Riebeck. Let me explain. While exploring the solar system, we find out that Riebeck is a scaredy cat. They spent a lot of their time studying the Nomai and living in the past for safety. They had to muster up all the courage they have to go explore space. They're hundreds of meters away from the hanging city, the reason they overcame their fear of space in the first place. Yet, they still set up shop here, the safest place they could find on Brittle Hollow, and they haven't really done any exploration since then. They're simply too scared to do so. But through our discoveries in the universe, we slowly change Riebeck's mindset by telling them how much cool Nomai stuff is actually out there. If we tell them there is currently a living Nomai on the Quantum Moon, they get so excited that they actively begin psyching themselves up for the terrifying journey to the sixth location. And if they thought runes were cool enough to risk their life for, what do you think Riebeck would endure for a shot to chat with a living Nomai? But back to the Nomai runes in the ancient glade. This whole thing is meant to represent our memory of Riebeck. They're a scaredy cat hiding away in the past, living life vicariously through Nomai runes to stay safe. And to break down those metaphorical walls, we have to connect with them. We have to do what Riebeck loved most, explore Nomai civilization. But only once we share that experience can we break down those walls. And afterwards, we can finally gain Riebeck's instrument and bring Riebeck with us to the campfire. I'd also like to note again how important it is our memories are being represented by the instruments here. It's like saying music connects people through time and space, no matter how alone or far away you are. From here, we can find every traveler we've met in any order, and at this point, it seems a lot less like the eye needing to communicate something to us, and much more like the eye giving us and allowing us forever with our memories to be with us. Because as we just established with Riebeck's character, everything we are seeing is just a representation of our memories. And to further elaborate, we can do what we did for Riebeck's scenario for basically everyone else. For Feldspar, we have to face our fears and stare down an anglerfish, besting the beasties they love so much as they'd call them. See, Feldspar too is sort of hiding behind the defenses they've built due to societal expectations for the best pilot ever. They've set up shop in Dark Bramble to hide from the others even though they could go home at any minute by using a radio, somewhere they know no one else is brave enough to go. And though they have the power to leave whenever they want, they decide to stay. But this doesn't mean that they want to be alone entirely. Once you fight through the fear and seek them out, they will gladly seat you by their campfire and share their wondrous stories with you, which I think is represented by the jellyfish being presented after the scary anglerfish. This whole thing, not just the instrument, is Feldspar. For Chert, we find their bongos orbiting stars, and we need to use our signal scope to retrieve it. I'm pretty sure this is meant to represent the idea that Chert, as an astronomer, was the only one who had galactic perspective. The astronomer was the only one who came to the realizations the universe was ending, which led them to an existential crisis, which is why we find them orbiting the stars in the ancient glade. They were on the brink of losing it, right around the sun. But if we go and bring them back with our observations, then they actually come to peace with everything. And that's something that we have to do and go through to get, come to peace with the whole fact that we're in a time loop and all that good stuff. And that's our memory and shared experience with Chert. With Gabbro, it's a bit confusing to me, so we'll cover them later. The Nomai's event is pretty interesting. It tells us a story about how the Nomai were trying to find the eye. They kept building and building off the shoulders of the previous generation's knowledge from the past Nomai, all for the single-minded goal that they couldn't ever reach. In fact, they couldn't even ever look at this thing directly, this wondrous bright object in the sky. They didn't even know what they were trying to reach to begin with. They just saw random signals. But in the end, this goal consumed them. If they had focused on other things, maybe the bright light wouldn't have blinded them. But in the end, the Nomai aren't really gone, because just as they did, off of their shoulders, we were able to propel ourselves forward and chase their dream and, kind of realize it ourselves. And in doing so, we share this experience with Solemn and the other Nomai, which is what allows us to bring her to the campfire with us. Next up is the prisoner, which gets a bit sad if you ask me. I think this is about how we had to dig deep into the depths of a dead society's collective memory to learn, and how their own technology led to their own demise. But to gain this knowledge for ourselves, we had to sacrifice part of ourselves, like, say, our freaking innocence, for instance. But even so, we have to face the hard and scary times head on. And in doing so, we learn a valuable lesson. The universe's story is coming to an end eventually, and how we should learn to gracefully accept that. But also, at the same time, it teaches us something else, that even if we're 6 feet under, in a grave, blowing out our own story's candle, with a dead ghost person spookily standing behind us in the mirror, we should face that hard time and tough situation so we can get through it to the beautiful parts of life. Once we get out of that metaphorical hole, so to speak. And just like the prisoner enduring their entire reality being 2 rooms in the sim forever, and only living a half-remembered dream for their beautiful flower becoming a reality, we had to endure through this scary nonsense to bring the beauty of the prisoner into our reality. Now, at this point, you may be thinking, what the heck is this guy talking about? Yeah, that all makes sense individually, but how is that a feel-good story where the eye is a beautiful place and is telling you something wonderful? How is this all okay? Well, here's where it all comes together. It turns out we can gather all of our friends around the campfire, and we can kind of talk to them forever. They will always be here. We can spend eternity in a timeless place with our friends because everything is relative. So it's forever. But after a while, we can begin the final orchestra, telling everyone to start playing their instruments. They begin to play a beautiful song around the campfire. Now remember, these aren't really our friends. They're quantum projections granted to us by the eye based off of our memories and our consciousness entangling with the eye, becoming one with the eye. But through our shared adventures and experiences in the universe, and music connecting people through time and space, we're able to remember all of our friends and bring their songs, and in a way them, along with us on our last journey. And once all of our friends start playing their music, the smoke above the campfire begins to coalesce. These are the innumerable possibilities for the next universe, and as the music swells, they begin flashing before our eyes. What we observe here becomes certain in the next universe, and through our friends' music, we are adding all of the things they love to the campfire smoke. But do you remember what this campfire was? What all these possibilities are emanating from? Sure, it's burning wood from a campfire, but do you remember where the wood came from? It was you. You. We entangled with the eye. It told us the universe was dying. Then it took us to the ancient glade. You met yourself when you were all alone. You turned into a tree, and then into a campfire. And then this campfire is what creates the next universe. This campfire is you. This whole experience is the eye's way of telling you that you are literally the most important thing in the universe. It took me 4 years to understand this, because the game is giving you all of these pieces to the puzzle just in the wrong order. And perhaps I wasn't ready to hear it at the time. But that is how the entire game is designed. It gives you the pieces in all the wrong order, and you just have to take a step back and think about it all. But after studying the game for around 4 years, here's what I think the ending is actually trying to tell you. You aren't small or lost. You aren't insignificant or alone in the universe. You're actually right where you need to be, and the singularly most important thing in it. And the universe is exactly the way it needed to be to have the most beauty in it. Do you think the hatchling would have been able to get through Dark Bramble and the anglerfish if we didn't grow up hearing about the stories of the ever-steady and brave Feldspar? Do you think we would have been able to accept our place in the universe if not for Gabbro's laid-back attitude and understanding of it all? And what this is telling us is, in a genuine way, you can never leave your loved ones behind. even if you lose them forever and forget them, because your loved ones and the people you interact with in life molded you. They'll literally always be with you. And the other half of this is true too. You are singularly important in the universe. You do literally create and affect the universe around you through your actions, just like the hatchling's observations affected the next universe. You are changing things around you every day by simple interactions, and you carry a small piece of your loved ones everywhere you go. So do your best to remember them and pass on their beauty to those around you. And at the same time, do your best in life to add the most beauty to the universe around you in your own way. And of course, there is much more meaning to be found in all of this, like how we entangled with the eye, how the eye creates the universe, we turned into the campfire that creates the universe. It's sort of like saying we become one with the eye, like we are the eye of the universe in a way. And the entire universe is based off of our memories of it. So while the universe may seem frightening and scary looking from the inside, at least in Outer Wilds, we know it was sort of molded by someone who cared deeply and with much love. But I just felt like this was the best message to highlight out of them all. You are the universe, and at the same time, affecting the universe around you. I know this may be silly, but when I finally figured out the meaning of all this, it was very impactful. I guess in the end, I could be wrong about all of this, but the eye of the universe was a scary place. It sends out scary signals and disappearing moons. It's tearing at the fabric of space-time around it. It casually shows you the universe dying. It's literally designed, in my opinion anyway, to make you feel so small, lost, and alone. But at the same time, it's actually the same object that gives you forever with your friends at a place that reminds you of home, with campfires, crickets, friends, and music, and it uses our consciousness to give us such a beautiful message of oneness and wholeness through symbolism. It's all very poetic and wonderful to me. Because in my experience, it's left so many people lost and alone and just in the moment yelling, "But I wish I could experience this for the first time again," always wondering why Outer Wilds was so impactful to them and how to recreate that experience, when really it's designed to be played multiple times and still be just as meaningful, just in different ways. And it told you exactly why it was so impactful to you itself, but just in the wrong order so we didn't understand it. But like I said, that's just in my experience. But before we end, we do need to have a little chat about Gabbro. I never thought the quantum poem would represent Gabbro in our memories. We're time buddies, not quantum buddies. That's how everybody knows Gabbro. And while it does make some sense that we imagine Gabbro a bit high in their hammock in the ancient glade, this is such an outlier in my opinion. I'd think we would remember Gabbro as something related to time, not their poem or anything quantum really. And the only thing I can think of is that's not how Gabbro lived their life, or the eye reminded us of the Gabbro quantumness, because we just see them as time buddies in relation to us as players, but really, that is relatively a short period of time when compared to their entire life. And in that light, they were the ones that kind of became one with the quantum. I imagine them with their flute just meditating in a pond, which is where the quantum poem Gabbro wrote is, and them just coming to the understanding of what's happening in the universe. Maybe that's why they're so chill and, fine with it all. So maybe we remember them for them, and not their relationship to us, which is sort of touching in a way. But that one's hard for me to say really, because I secretly believe Gabbro was the observer of the eye in the last universal loop, and their memories created a future version of them who just knew this stuff. Not that they literally kept living or anything like that, like the Scout or something, but it'd be like if the version of the hatchling in the bug species next universe just sort of understood most things, you know what I'm saying? But still, yeah, that's a pretty insane thought to have, so I may be biased here, and it may be confusing me a bit. Sorry about that. But I think I cover all the bases here. But with that said, I would love help on Gabbro's interpretation here if you have one. If you appreciated the analysis, consider liking and subscribing to the channel, and as usual, a special thank you to the members here on the channel. And it is truly a special thank you, not one of those silly normal ones. And as always, this is a lore explorer diving deep into the symbolism to reassure you that you aren't lost and alone in the universe, no matter what you're going through. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.